I'm Dan Brisebois with the Farmer Spreadsheet Academy. Today's tip is inspired by an email I received recently from someone who was asking how to merge multiple lists into one. How to merge multiple lists in Google Sheets. You can follow along at home by getting the spreadsheet at farmerspreadsheetacademy.com/FSA028. Let's start off by being clear about what we're talking about. Here, I have three lists. Each list has a column with a crop in it and a column with a variety associated with that crop. So we have one list, two list, three list. So I want to turn these three lists into one list. Having one list instead of three makes most spreadsheet formulas so much easier and simpler to use. Let's do this step by step. The first thing I'm going to note is that the technique I'm using requires all the lists to have the same number of columns. There are ways to do this with lists with different numbers of columns, but this approach will not work for those. When we talk about lists, we're actually talking about arrays. So at the simplest, let's try to merge two lists before we merge three. The way to do this is to open a curly bracket, then write the range of your first list, semicolon, the range of your second list, and then close the curly bracket. On some keyboards, you can actually find the curly bracket as a key. If you're using a Mac, you might need to find the key with the curly bracket on it and then push Alt at the same time as you're using the curly bracket. Equals, open my curly bracket, A4 to B7, semicolon, C4 to D7. That's my second range. Close the curly bracket, enter. And here, the lists have been stacked one on top of the other. And you can add more than two arrays by adding a semicolon and then the array, and then a semicolon and then the array, and so forth, and just wrapping the whole thing up with a curly bracket. And that's what we get here. One thing you might not like about this list is that it presents the items in the order that they appeared in the lists, in the order that you chose to display the lists. However, we can use our array in the unique formula to create a list that has no duplicates in it. So equals our formula, enter. And here, this shows us that same list, but with all the duplicates eliminated. To take this a step further, we can actually embed the unique formula with the array into a sort formula. So equals sort unique, the array, enter. And here we have all the items, and now they're sorted alphabetically. If you want more information about how to use sort and unique, you can go back to Farmer Spreadsheet tip number 18. Before we proceed, I do want to sound one note of caution. Make sure that when you're dividing your arrays, you're actually using a semicolon and not a comma. If you put a comma, you wind up with your arrays placed side by side as opposed to one on top of the other. In some situations, you might actually want this result, but in today's example, this is not the case. Now, there's one more thing you should know about this formula. Let's say you don't want to grow a green romaine anymore, and instead you want to grow a red romaine. And you push enter. You lost all your information. So this list that you've generated cannot be modified. If you want to modify it, you have to go into your original information. So here, if we change green romaine to red romaine, it'll update that information. And if we delete something, it'll update that information immediately. This list is actually a report that is showing you your other three lists. Now you can use this report for all kinds of formulas, but if you want to change the data in it, you have to go back to your original lists. So let's look at a situation where you might need to merge lists. Here you have one list, a spreadsheet that shows your market sales, what date you went to market, the crop you sold, and how much you sold of each crop. Here's another list. This is a spreadsheet with your CSA basket contents over the same weeks with the same crops and how much you put in your CSA baskets. You probably had 50 CSA shares and people got one of each of the things on these weeks. So you have two separate lists with vegetables that were distributed. Now, maybe you want to make one list so you can put it all together and tell your certifier what you did, or you might have some other reason to merge them together. So here is where we want the final results to be. In this cell, I'm going to write equals, open my curly bracket. I am going to put the first range in, which is actually on another page, and I'm going to highlight everything. And in this case, the range is A3 to D14, but I'm actually going to do A3 to D to highlight all the rows underneath, semicolon, and then the next range in question. And I will also go A3 to D, and I'm going to close the bracket, enter. Here it shows me my lists, but you might notice what it shows me at first, this is just a list from the market. I can't see the CSA stuff. But if I scroll down, I'll find the CSA information here. And that's because I left the range open, so this has included a bunch of blank rows that were in the previous spreadsheet. If I had actually closed the range at D14, enter, then there's none of those blank rows, and it goes straight to the next spreadsheet. Let's go back to the open ranges. So in this situation, let's do some unique sort. Add unique, open parentheses, and then have our array, and then close parentheses, and push enter. It has gone through and gotten rid of a bunch of those empty rows and just showed us one empty row, and that's the unique. The last piece I'll put in here is adding the sort formula. Open the bracket, open the parentheses, add a close parentheses at the end, enter. And now it sorts all that information first by date, then by crop, and then by the quantity sold and the bunches. At this point, my market sales and my CSA contents are put into one list. I could now apply SUMIFs or any other formula to this one list to create a dashboard or report that shows me specific things that I might want to see. When you combine your lists into one place, it opens up all kinds of opportunities to make your spreadsheets more powerful for your farm. And that was merging lists with Google Sheets. If you want more Farmer Spreadsheet tips like this, then subscribe to this channel, and there will be more. Take care, and happy farming!